I could go in detail into what happened over the last 10 years, and I think it is something that I will actually have to do. There are various elements, but the milder element is this the way that people got carried away. Mainly the Sinhalese ethnic community got carried away with this notion that they had finally found suitable material with which a feudal dynasty could be established in order to evolve their traditions, their traditional structures, and their traditional ideological content. And we saw this movement very clearly towards the crowning of a king and towards the establishment of a dynasty. The word used was president, but the behavior was not the behavior of a president. A president is part of a democratic institution, but what we saw was the emergence of an aristocratic personality who assumed that the state and his property belonged to him, and the people enjoyed whatever they did enjoy at his grace and at his choice and his decision, actually his benevolence. And we saw exactly what would have prevailed in feudal dynasties before the establishment of modern democracy. And of course our constitution, because it gives the president absolute power and total freedom from prosecution, even for crimes committed in his personal capacity, our constitution facilitated this behavior, and our constitution, interestingly, still continues to facilitate this kind of behavior. And that shows very clearly that the majority of us are quite comfortable with an autocrat as the president or an autocratic presidency. Our president can kill anybody he likes, he can rape any woman he likes, he can do whatever he likes, and he is above the law. Nothing can be done. Absolutely nothing, because he is constitutionally empowered to do anything that he likes. Nobody can question what he does. And that tends to rub off on the family. So we see presidential offspring using the resources of the state as they please, doing whatever they like, commanding state officials to be in attendance to them. These are very ugly things, but they don't look so ugly when you understand that in the heart of almost every person who belongs to this majority Sinhala ethnic community, what we are trying to do is to re-establish, to get back to square one, where we are free of these invasionary forces, able to establish our feudal dynasty and move forward step by step to whatever we think we should have. So that is the essential dynamics of socio-economic development in Sri Lanka. It comes into direct conflict with what is going on in the rest of the world. But I don't think this is like totally peculiar to Sri Lanka. I'm pretty sure that many third world nations share this kind of a dynamic. And I'm equally sure that the developed world does not understand this and does not care to understand it. It's basically you fall in line with us or face the consequences. And I am not sure whether that is the best way to handle things, and it's certainly not the way that I choose to handle things. I think we need to talk. I think we need to talk, we need to discuss, we need to allow people to express what is in their minds and come to terms with what is around them, because there's a contradiction between the internal structures to begin with. We have to realize that there's a difference between structure and infrastructure. Although structure then leads to certain kinds of infrastructure being constructed. But we need to understand first that there is a thing called structure, which is in our minds, and maybe in our laws, and maybe in our rules, and maybe in our regulations. But primarily it is in our mind. And if we do not change these structures, we will continue to see the world the way we see it, and we will not be able to change. So we have to undergo a process of mass perceptual modification. And mass perceptual modification is not an easy thing to do. And there are very few people in the world who are actually interested and capable of engaging in processes of mass perceptual modification. And who is going to fund this process of mass perceptual modification? It takes technology, it takes talent, it takes human resources and many other resources as well. So I am by no means certain, or I have actually no clue as to who will fund this process of mass perceptual modification. But on the other hand, I am very clear that we need this mass perceptual modification to occur. I have no idea of all the elements which have to be modified, but I will just give you one small example. I told you that we live in an atmosphere of conflict. I told you that. And this conflict, as is usual in these perceptual paradigms, has got polarized around two people. On the one hand, there is an invader, supposed to be an invader. We really don't know about the story, as I will show you. There is an invader called Ellara, a Tamil. He's supposed to have invaded the country when there was a king called Asela, I think. I'm not an historian. Conquered a part of the land, the north, where there are lots of Tamils even today. And it is assumed that he was a Tamil, although he was, according to the legends as they are found in India, he was a Chola king. And I'm not by any means certain that the Cholas and the Tamils are the same. But as far as the Sinhalese people are concerned, Ellara was a Tamil. And this Tamil was an invader. And this invader was ruling the north. And the king at the time, close by, the closest Sinhala king was a chap called Kavantissa. And Kavantissa, for reasons unknown, he was a coward. So he did not want to attack this invading Tamil king and throw him out of the country and liberate the land. So Kavantissa, in the popular mind, is a coward. And then he had a very brave son who resented the presence of this Tamil monarch and who dedicated his life to expelling him from the country. And this led to a war. And like in the case of all legends, there are lots of subplots which are also very interesting, but this is the main theme. Now, to this day, in the mind of the Sinhalese and the minds of the Tamil, there is a war going on between Ellara and the son of Kavantissa, whose name was Dutugamunu. And Dutugamunu won. So this conflict keeps going on. The Tamils try to hit back. Then there's another Dutugamunu episode and they lose. Now, it's interesting. It's not a joke. I remember when I was in school, maybe 6, 7 years old, there were mock wars between the Tamil class and the Sinhalese class. And I remember how alarmed the teachers were when they saw this sort of thing happening. But they were helpless. Many of them didn't like it. Many of them felt deeply disturbed. And they all knew that there was this ideology driving it, and this ideology was creeping into the education system. The story of Ellara and Dutugamunu was part of the regular reading material, the supposed story. So this is a serious conflict, and this is the sort of the driving force behind what happened over the last 30 years, as far as I can see. And the driving force is still there. Kids are still taught about this thing in school. So if you go on like this, you can be fairly certain that you will have another explosion somewhere down the line in one way or another, unless something is changed. Right. Now to get back to the story of Elara and Dutugamnu, let's try to look at it a bit critically.